I will call the meeting to order at 7:04 on October 28th of the Open Space Committee. And can we please say that we are present? Jim Dooling,
Uh, I'm present and here.
Mike Carboni,
Present.
and Bill Hoffman.
Present.
Okay. Oh, you are there. Okay. And
I'm here too. Sean McElroy.
okay, and Sean. All right. Great. Thank you.
I'm here too. This is Christina Hoffman.
Okay. Right. I was coming to you. I really was. Yes. Obviously my screen isn't big enough, Christina, or something. Anyway, okay, so do we have any citizen inquiries that aren't present, which would mean a question to Sadie? Do we have any questions we need to answer?
Not at the moment. I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up, but there was this was more of an inquiry towards Kristen, but there was the resident who was concerned about, or they just couldn't find the trail at the Seagate
Oh,
property.
okay.
So
I would suggest we take that up later because that will lead us into another topic on the discussion.
Okay.
So let's move to the minutes and okay, does anybody have any necessary corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, would someone please propose we accept the minutes as submitted?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Okay, will somebody second that?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Okay, so our minutes are accepted and all right, so now I sent out about in concerning the next item, which is the suggested and I would suggest we call it an email. It really isn't a letter. Anyway, I sent out about an hour ago a suggested text change to that. I don't know whether you folks got it. You might want to check your email if you have a moment there to see what I sent. And what I sent was what I had picked up was what Mike suggested. And I thought that was a good suggestion. And so I came up with what I think can be inserted into the text. And okay, so there we go. Okay. So does everybody have that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me just read it. Your response to this request for comment will only be shared with the committee with a capital C and will not become part of the text of the published final plan, capital P. I suggested either we put it in before our names, which would mean essentially at the end of the text as it now exists, or after our names. I don't know whether it makes a great deal of difference where it comes. I just think it should. I thought it should be associated with our names so that it's clear that we're all saying that.
Yeah.
So anybody have any comments or suggestions to change or accept it?
I like it. I think it should go after. And The only change that I would make is because on the first bullet, you abbreviated the Open Space Committee OSC. So I propose that where you say committee with a capital C, you take that out and replace it with OSC. So we're just consistently using the same abbreviation for the Open Space Committee.
Okay, okay, yeah, that makes good sense. Do you think it should be in full or just abbreviated OSC?
I think OSC works because we've defined what OSC
Yep.
is.
Okay, okay,
That's-
all right, great. So I will do that, which would change it very minimally. Okay. Any other suggestions? Okay, then, can we, I think, since we need to accept this thing as is now so that we can get it underway.
Just a second. Mike, does that, I know you had a comment as well. Does that, what we just changed or like what David added kind of encapsulate what you were trying to say?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. No, I just threw it in the email kind of off the cuff so I wouldn't forget when I read the letter last night. And yeah,
Okay.
I think David kind of made it more formal.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe we'd get brutally honest
Okay.
answers one way, good or bad, if they know that it's just us and it just gives us a way to engage, back. Like, why do you feel that way? What, give us more information about your comment, whatever, so.
Hmm.
No,
True.
I think that's a good point, Mike, which is why I, suggested this change because to encourage people to respond to us, I think they don't need to be threatened that we're going to run around saying, oh, Peter John said that we shouldn't, or what he thinks about open space. Yeah. Okay. So could I have a motion to accept the letter as now amended?
I'll make a motion to accept the email as amended.
Okay, you're right. I'm using letter to email. Okay, can I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. Okay, so moving on to the next item. All right. Okay, so Sadie did us a very comprehensive checklist here, which is more than I had originally sort of put together, but it's very useful. My only sort of comment at this point would be it's a bit small on the page, but that's okay. So what I'm looking at, and I'm going to hold it up, is I'm looking at this, okay?
Yes. Yes, I sent that out to you all as a PDF screenshot, but I wanted to suggest at this meeting because I feel like, well, I know David, you expressed the concern that people don't know the status of where we are. And I think that's true. And so I thought, I know Kristen advised us against this before, but I personally think that it would really help us is to have a Google Drive of materials. So this checklist that I sent out to you all is actually a spreadsheet that's in this Google folder that I made with just some other materials that I thought everyone should have. And it's a lot easier than, emailing stuff to people. So I wanted to see what you all thought about that going forward. We could use a Google folder to share things.
I'm
I
good with it.
like that idea.
Yeah.
I'm used to working as a group in a folder where we'll all have access to it, so.
Yeah, and we can see other people's stuff that they've submitted and, offer, feedback and stuff more easily. What do people think?
That'd be great. I agree with what Bill said. So, yeah.
I
Okay.
just say like, if you just keep it organized, so if someone just drops something in, maybe put it in the correct folder. And
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
I have it organized as there's a maps folder, there's a section drafts folder, and there's a survey and results folder. And then there's some general things that are just kind of loose in the folder, including the spreadsheet that I made. And yeah, I thought people could maybe like, if they have a new version of their draft, they could replace the one that's in here, and just each person could keep it updated. And I could like generally keep it organized, but yeah.
Yeah, it's almost, I do wonder, like with the drafts, if there is a previous version there, but like I know with my section, I'm still doing more edits, and I think there'll be enough of a difference that it would be better for someone to get the edited version when it's ready, as opposed to going back to the the
Yeah.
first draft. So just making sure someone doesn't grab an outdated, or
Yeah,
one that
maybe,
really doesn't reflect the most current status. How we organize that, I don't know what, ready for review or something that indicates, people should look at it.
yes.
Yeah,
Um,
but I don't know if we have to answer that right now, but
Is
Yeah.
there, is there a way of doing that, Sadie, in what you're proposing? And in other words, is there a way of indicating that X, meaning me or Christina, has read it or seen it, or, or does that make it too complicated? What I'm
um,
wondering is that we don't always necessarily know that we're all aware, which is why I tried to get into this, what I thought was a bit of a problem, that we had all these moving parts, and some of us were aware of some of them, and some of us were aware of others, and we needed a place to go. And I think you're beginning to generate that.
yeah, I'm thinking, well, maybe, I think Kristen's concern was that we'd all be editing things at the same time and versions would get messed up, but also like there would be open meeting law violations, risk of that. So I'm
No,
thinking
no.
that maybe we could like submit things through me, and then I could update the folder, and that could be like the process. But then still everyone could see everything.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Just to address this open meeting issue, okay, the open meeting issue has to do with where we commit ourselves to decisions as a committee.
I know. I think people could like make decisions and make changes without realizing that
Yeah.
they.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, but if we have what has to happen in terms of the open meeting law, if we're moving towards making a final decision about accepting something or doing something, then that has to be part of a public meeting process. But well, for example, what I did tonight, adding that sentence, sending it out to everybody, that was because if you do meetings on Zoom, that's really the only way to handle that kind of situation. In other words, to put the text in front of everybody, you have to get it to them. So I think we should relax a little about that in terms of Christian's concern. I just think it was sort of a warning not to have us go off and make decisions and not share them with one another clearly, and two, not to have it clear when a decision was made.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
So-
Sadie, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So are you thinking that, so you're gonna populate this folder and everybody, we're not just gonna have the draft open the draft plan in a Word version and you're pasting everything in, so everybody has the whole document. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna paste in section 4, which is just a Word document that has section 4 and just section 1. So if anybody wants to read individual sections, they can. Or were you saying you were gonna collapse it into a document?
I can do either. At the moment, the folder that I've organized has just the sections as individual documents, but I do kind of like, I would kind of like to form it into one big document just so we can kind of start getting used to reading it as one, like as like the sections flow into each other. So maybe that's how I can organize it going forward. What do you think?
I think whatever's honestly easiest for you to manage from a formatting standpoint. That way you're not reformatting multiple times or something like that. So, if you feel like you don't want to collapse it all together until we're at, through the like all through like the first draft and edits checkboxes or something, or just something that you don't have to end up like redoing it multiple times.
Mhm. Sure.
I haven't changed any formatting from the template, but I know things can get wonky copying and pasting from either the 2010 plan or something else. So, I
Mhm.
just want to make it harder on you. So whatever
Okay.
you're most
That's a good.
comfortable with.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Agreed. And I
Okay.
think that if we have like 2 subfolders, one is, early drafts, then anybody who's reading that knows that maybe it's not ready. And then you have another folder that says, I like someone suggested ready for review. Then everybody knows that like they can review early drafts if they want, but really the ready for review section is where it's actually ready for other eyes.
Okay. Yeah, that's also a good idea.
Are we, so when, not to project too far ahead, but when we are, say, grabbing a ready for review section, are we saying that we're putting comments? How are we providing feedback, I guess? Do we need to talk about that now, or is it, am I putting the cart before the horse?
It's a good thing to consider.
Or are we gonna wait till we get to a meeting and then kind of say, oh, we're gonna go through section 4 now, any thoughts? And how granular are we getting, I guess? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, again, I don't wanna start
No.
talking about something that we're not even ready to do and do it in a hypothetical, but
Mhm.
like, yeah, I guess I'm just
No,
curious
that's a
about.
good point because
Yeah.
they're like, I mean, I've been looking them over the drafts and stuff, and but I want the rest of us to like have some sort of mechanism to provide feedback on other people's sections. But I had not thought about that yet.
On your checklist, I just tried to share it, but I don't have that ability. But it's been started. There's a first draft. It's been edited, then final draft complete, and then approved. So are people going to review after final draft complete, or should people go in and review other people's sections after edits have been made?
I almost think it should be after like final draft complete. Like I'm just gonna use my section for example. I'm like almost there, but I've got Martha Taylor looking over the town inventory stuff to give me feedback on if any grants were ever used, things like that. So I still need to update that one section. So why review it twice? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I feel like I've got all the information there, then it's like, all right, let's go through it and fine tooth comb it.
Well, I think my suggestion would be, I think, to answer some of these, and that is that if we get to the point of the final draft, then I think, okay, first of all, I would suggest to Sadie that you have 2 things, and that is you have the separate well, if you want to call them folders, yeah, for each section. Okay. And
Mhm.
then you have the total thing, because frankly, finding stuff in the total thing, particularly when it's sort of not a whole thing, is a real pain, because you've got pages and pages before you actually get perhaps to the the new item or the what you're looking for. So I think it will be helpful, unless it creates, as Mike suggests, more work for you, because eventually what you're going to be doing basically anyways is cut and pasting into a final draft, right?
So
essen-
you're saying to have a folder for each section and then have the different drafts like dated in each folder.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Because then what I'm suggesting is that when we get to the point of having what have you got down here? Okay, so the file of okay, first draft edits, first draft rewrite, final draft. At any stage of this, there could be simply a little file which shows all of the people who have signed off on it. In other words, I think what you need to be able to know is who's read it and is happy with it or needs to make a comment. And then I think in regard to Jim's comment, my response would be, yeah, how do we handle people's comments? Well, I suppose there are two ways. One is to basically, use a standard sort of word text editing kind of tool. So you put you put in what you want to take out and substitute or whatever. And that, yeah, I mean, okay, so how do other people feel about coping with changes?
I mean, there is a comment feature in Google Docs.
Yeah,
Is that's not a meeting law violation to make comments on.
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
think I mean I don't think it is. I just get kind of I'm still learning
no,
about it
no,
myself, so
no.
I'm cautious, but
No, 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 no. If okay, no, I mean the only circumstance where I could see we could stray into that territory, which by the way is used as a weapon far too often to limit how you get things done. But is if, for example, let's say we had a major disagreement within the committee about something, and we essentially hid that it wasn't open. Okay, that would be an issue if, but no, I mean, partly because you can't get any work done if everything you discuss, has to, well, otherwise we'll be here to midnight every night. Um, but let's come back to, okay, so how do we handle our comments so that frankly, we don't have a long session of, going through lots of comments for the first time. That's my concern, is to come to a meeting and suddenly find out that there's a major problem.
I can
Yeah,
like I think something I'm picturing is everyone can make comments in the Google Doc, and then like 2 days before the meeting, or maybe longer before the meeting, if there's a lot of comments, I can like incorporate them all into the doc, and then or maybe people can make their comments and then we can talk about them in the meeting, or we can, skip over any, small formatting or misspells or whatever, but like conceptual ones we can kind of go through one by one.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
I can go through them and mark some bigger ones that I think we need to talk about as a committee, or people can come to me and say, I had this issue. Can we please talk about this in the meeting? Or something like that.
So what do the rest of you folks think to Sadie's idea there?
So, I'm sorry, what I was gonna say, Sadie, you're going to be the central arbiter. So basically, we'll be looking at the document, making changes and then sending them to you. You will then incorporate them into the document and get that document out to us for us to review as a group, that kind of thing. Is that what we're talking about?
Well,
Kind of,
I think you'd make the comments like within the doc, like, you know,
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the point is, each of us individually will be doing that. And then sending you a copy of the entire document.
well,
Which you then,
it's like a live, if you just leave it in the doc, it'll save out. If you just leave it in the folder, it'll just save automatically and I can look at it whenever.
oh, I see. Oh,
So
okay.
it's like a live like feed of like people editing. So I can see where that would get kind of chaotic, but I don't know. That's like the
Well,
best
we have to do
way
it
I
by
can think of.
section, don't we, Sadie, to keep this under control? In other words, we have to have you say, would you all please review the status of the edits in community? If there are ones, okay? And then we all do that. We can't all be doing different things at once because that'll drive you right out of your mind.
Well, no,
Yes.
actually, I think that it's actually like if different people are reviewing different sections at the same time, that's good. So then we're not all in the same document at the same time. So it seems like we're going to be using suggestion mode in Google Docs, which sounds like Microsoft Word track changes, which is like the universal standard for
Mhm.
multiple people looking at a document. They just use track changes and it shows what people suggest and what people to add and what they suggest to delete. And then you can also just add a comment off to the side. I haven't used Google Docs, but I'm assuming that I just looked it up quickly and it says that Google Docs uses suggesting mode, which is about the same thing. So I'm assuming we're just going to use that. So type in stuff you think should be there, delete stuff you think should be out, and leave a note if you think there's some description needed. But I feel like, Sadie, you're going to tell us which sections are ready once we get to that, what is it called, final draft, ready for review? That's the
Yeah.
version that you're going to say, okay, they're ready, and people just sort of have at it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like, if someone else wants to be the divine judge, then you can, but I'm fine to do it. Because you know, you guys are volunteers and I'm not, so but if
just,
anyone wants a role there, that's also cool. But
yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I think we need somebody to sort of shepherd this thing.
Yeah.
But the more technical issue, I mean, maybe it's not likely to happen, but can two people actually edit the same document at the same time, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it shows
it's
you where
hard
they
enough.
are. Like if you're on
Yeah.
like the first line and they're on the fourth paragraph, it will like show you Sean's editing right here, and it like will
Oh,
follow
yeah.
the cursor.
You'll
to where
see
you
the
are.
cursor of
I
each
used
person.
to sit like right next to someone in school and we'd be in the same document, like typing
Yeah.
messages to each other, and like we'd be like able to read the other person's what they're writing.
okay.
It's pretty cool.
One thing, Christina, you were saying suggestion mode. I mean, in Google Docs, there's suggestion mode, which actually lets you totally like edit in line what you're reading. So you are like overwriting from your perspective as the reviewer, you're overwriting or making changes, you know, as if you're doing your own actual inline editing there. There's comment mode, which is not going to change the actual text and is off in the margin
Yeah.
and
right.
is much more like, you know, well, I was reading this paragraph and, you know, not sure I'm getting, you know, it's missing some stuff, and you can then, you know, put what you might add into it and stuff like that. So it's, you know, there are two different modes there that I think
So which one do
without
we
us
want to
all
use?
getting,
Does the suggesting mode I thought that the suggesting mode was like word track changes where it highlights in blue, like what you're suggesting, and then it highlight or what you've added, and then it crosses out in red what
It
you
does,
are
right, and you
suggesting to
can then,
delete. So then we can review those things later to decide
you
what we
can,
want to accept or not.
yeah, it's that, and then, whoever, somebody can accept it, right? After
Yeah,
we've,
right,
and
right.
then it automatically then, removes all the colored highlighted stuff to, go with what ultimately was decided on. That's kind of a tedious process, right? If we're all doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do we want to stick to just commenting only, or?
It might be cleaner that way, like just simpler, because I could see if there's 7 of us going line by line or going through everything, gosh, that could get, yeah, could get in the weeds.
Yeah, maybe
Right.
maybe we should just stick to comments then.
I
And
don't-
then if someone's already commented something that another person sees, then they'll be like, okay, I don't have to put anything here because that comment's already been made. So
Exactly. It's more like additive that way. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I think Jim's got a good point that we need to leave the text as submitted and not start overwriting it in anything we share. If you want to overwrite it in your own copy, so to speak, in other words, if you want to come up with language that perhaps then you bring to the committee, I think that's fine. But to start doing it on the edited version, I think would really confuse. Well, it would be difficult for Sadie to cope with, for one thing, because let's say you have perhaps a paragraph which has 3 people who want to rewrite a bit of it, or think there's a comment to be made, and if we all do that into the text, that really becomes, as I would see it, a nightmare. Does that make any sense, Jim?
I think that probably maybe it's worth just saying we start off that way where we comment,
Yeah.
see how it goes. Maybe we just right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than we all say one of the sections, like we're going to use that as the first pass. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the starting point is, but
Yeah, let's start with the
yeah.
comments mode then,
yeah, and see
I'm
how
used
it
to having
goes.
lots of people comment on the same thing, but I feel like for this group, maybe we just start with the comments and we go from there. We'll see how that
Yeah.
one looks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Unless there's somebody who really wants to be like the editor and the wordsmither and the, like getting really into like all the stuff.
Eventually,
it's-
we'll need that because we're going to need someone
Exactly,
to
it's-
start at the beginning and make sure it flows, and we all use the right abbreviations, and we all use the right,
Yeah, and get-
shorthand and whatnot. So it is going to take that, but maybe that's so far down the path that we don't
Exactly.
do
That's
that.
almost like before approval where we're, yeah. Yep.
So,
Good.
all right. So I'm kind of mixed on this, but we can go down the comment road, and I think we'll probably end up on the track changes once you guys realize, or we realize formatting and stuff. But anyway, it's fine. But so if there's a comment made, say by maybe a couple members, say this section here, I'm thinking about like, my fish and wildlife section or something like that. You're like, well, we should really expand on this section because of Newberry's special, whatever. Then does it go back to the original writer, the original author, to make that incorporate a new revision and then bring that back out? So if I went to Mike's section and like, Mike, you could bang this out here, then let him go back and rework it a little bit. I don't think it's up to us to rewrite their section for them. Here's a section, here's some suggestions. Here's a resource you might want to read first and then come back. I mean, is that kind of where we're going to head with this for editing?
That seems like a great way to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say if you have a particular comment where you think this paragraph I think needs this, I would write right into the comments what you think it should say. So Mike doesn't have to figure out, or Bill doesn't have to
Yeah.
figure out, like, what do you mean by this comment? What do you think I should add? Like, just put in text, and I guess we're not going to put it in line in the narrative, but put it in your comment. Just write out what you think it should say. So then everybody can say, oh yeah, let's add that or not add it.
Yeah. And like if you have like an in-depth comment or you want to like chat with someone, I feel like you could also just like reach out to the person and be like, can we talk about this? Or
Mhm.
like email, like
Yeah.
not the whole committee, but just like back and forth between 2 people. That would be fine.
Yeah, I think so. Because we need to sort of facilitate this because I don't know, group edit can be a nightmare. And
Yeah.
we need to sort of, if we can, understand that people have taken on sections, okay? And ultimately, it seems to me that it's not unreasonable to suggest that they finally present a a final edit that is the result of the inputs that's come from the committee and from Sadie, obviously. And at that point, that's the point at which we say, okay, that's the text for the final draft of the plan. What I think we need as a controlling factor here may be for Sadie to look at this, and maybe this is something I can work with her on, and to decide to get a decision as to where it might be useful to have everybody work on a particular section. In other words, to send out a request and say, please review this section as it currently exists, right? And
Yeah.
then and then, when we've done that, then we move through this steadily as sections either are ready or in sequence, depending what makes some sense. Because, I do have one, for example, maybe this is not the time to mention it, but I can't think of any other time looking at the agenda. Right. I have a particular difficulty right now with the fact that if you look at the whatever you want to call it, spreadsheet that Sadie did, in the section which is number 4, which is environmental, etc., under F, which is climate, it appears that it's in the edit stage, and I am not at all sure is what is being offered for editing, because we have Sean and Ella who did some stuff, and for me they kind of just don't hang together. And I also feel that they're off pretty well not in the right direction. And I don't mean that as a sort of nasty criticism of their thinking, but um, it's a case, I think, where we need to be a little careful as to what the Richard Handbook pushes us into. Um, and if you look at what the handbook talks about in this section, they talk about stuff that is understandably things that people who live in urban areas or dense suburbs will need to consider, things like, planting shade trees in parks and, all this kind of thing. I think and they, as a result, direct people to some sources of information, which I think don't do us any favors, in the sense that I don't think we need to show necessarily that we've looked at those. Um, and so this is a circumstance where I think we will need in that section to really try to have a meeting of minds about what we think about what it's not so much what they want us to do, but what we want to do that will fit within the broad terms of what they're talking about.
So
Because,
David, then you're gonna review that section once it's ready for your review, and it sounds like you're gonna put a big comment in there, and you might want to get with Sean and Ella and have a side
well,
conversation
this,
about it.
yeah, right.
That's my suggestion.
Because you're right. I mean, my comment would be, but I don't say this facetiously. I say this. My comment might be as large as one of the things they've done, which is crazy. I just need to look at it more closely and try and marry what I believe our obligation is and what the realities on the ground are. And so, yeah, that comes back to what Sadie suggested just a moment ago, and that's a good example where if I reach out to them and we come to some understanding, and then that gets presented as an, because at this point you've got two pieces which in no way join. They really don't. So and I don't know what the intention is or was at that point. And
Well, I think
that's,
that we're not going deep on that tonight, so you
no,
and
no,
Sean, Sean's right
yeah,
here, you can
yeah,
just talk directly to him. Sean, I think David wants to talk with you about your sections, and why don't you guys like just take a
right.
crack at that?
But I just brought it up because I thought it was a good example of what could happen. And your suggestion says, okay, do it on the side and come back with either things we need all to talk about or whatever. Okay, good.
Right, and just one other
Yeah, I
thing
would
is,
just
if
say,
it's rewrite the whole section, I mean, you can also, next meeting, we can go over these comments, because if they're that big where we want to rework, or you feel strongly like we need to go against the book and rework a section, then as a committee, we can also agree and kind of work through that as a team on that one section. So I think that's the beauty of this comment, is like, you can put in your 2 cents, talk to the author or whatever, but then if it's a big change, then as a group we can talk about it and come up with a plan.
Yeah, right, right. Okay, so do we feel that we sort of know now this item is talking about the checklist. So I think the next item on the agenda, if we're ready to move to it, is a report about the Recreation Committee visit that was made and where we are on that. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to invite Sean and Christina to talk about it, because Sean, you sent me a really informational email a while ago, and I wanted to give you the chance to share that information with the rest of us, just about like the meeting and like what they will be doing.
okay, I'm trying to look up the email now, so
I can
to
I can
remind
also
myself what I
I
said.
can also look for it. I think that was the last one I got from you. So.
So anyways, we were trying to,
I have it if I
you
can.
have the email?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, you
so
said
anyways, we,
Well,
yeah,
could
okay.
we first establish why they went? I mean, I think that's
Okay.
important to know. Why did you go?
well,
Basically, I think the main reason is that we are, as a group, I think, expecting input from the Recreation Committee as a somewhat relatively major a contributor to this plan, as it is both open space and recreation oriented. One might even argue it's more oriented towards recreation, but so it was just what we were just initiating that process. So we attended their meeting, and I just proposed to them the idea, or actually it was asking them how they would imagine what they imagine is going to appear in the document from a recreation standpoint, specifically around planning. Because, you know, that's the big open issue in the document. There's most of the document actually is kind of a prelude to the section on establishing, you know, an open space and recreation plan, recreation being a large component of that. As it turns out, they are doing planning because they're, unlike our committee, their committee has to submit requests to the board for funding. If they want to fix the playing fields, or if they want to add a parking lot somewhere or something like that, all this stuff has to be presented to the board and possibly at town meeting to get approval. So there was, you know, so the point is, we can't just say, I mean, we can't decide what their goals are. I guess that's the point. So what I was hoping is that I went and presented, you know, that as a thought concept, something for them to consider. This would all have to be done. There's a timing issue involved too, because they have to have their plans put together before the end of the year, because it has to be, it has to go in front of the Board of Selectmen before the year's up, in order to end up on the town meeting warrant if they are going to seek anything on the warrant. Okay, so the point is, that's to initiate that process of getting their input on the recreation side of the plan here. And get that movement going. The other thing is, the actual writing of the section that would incorporate the recreation plan is probably going to fall to us. That's, I'm assuming, since it would probably be too complicated, you know, to get their direct involvement in that. Having said that, they could certainly supply us with text that describes their plans, and then it would be up to us to incorporate them in their document, at which point we would need to get their approval. Recognizing all that has to happen all before the end of the year, I recommended or suggested that perhaps we set up a joint meeting where we can get together, look at those, and adopt them as part of the plan, all in time for the end of year planning for the town. Actually, it's kind of more important for them to do their planning than it is to get that information in the open space plan, because that doesn't have a deadline actually. In the sense that, the funding situation hangs in the balance. I don't know if that explains it all, but it just was essentially opening the door to get information from them on how to proceed in terms of recreation planning for the document. And everything is still up in the air. I wrote the email to Sadie because I was basically just, I kind of appointed her as the liaison between the two committees until we can actually sit down together and face to face go over this stuff. Having said all that, there sounds like a formalism, but and there really isn't one. I mean, they're not hiding anything. It's just that I think they haven't actually, a plan hasn't condensed in their minds yet. So it's something we have to just be aware that we can get this information because it has to be done before the end of the year. We can incorporate it into our document, and we can coordinate with them somehow, I think. But it's all got to happen, within the next month. sort of thing. So in addition to what we're doing now, would have to all sort of fall into place before the end of the year. Does that make sense? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I reached out to them. I haven't heard back yet, but I will keep asking.
Okay. Okay. Excellent.
Okay,
So-
I have a question, and that is, did you get any sense of whether they talked about plan, did they talk about a plan or plans as one might kind of generically?
There are, I think,
Sean, sorry to interrupt. I think you said something about they're going to compile just like their goals for recreation, and that was going to be kind of put into the analysis of needs section of our plan. I think that was what like
yeah,
you
that's
had
what I
asked.
meant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, just I can try and summarize it, Sean. So
Yeah.
we went there because we know that they're going to want to provide some goals that go into the plan because it's the open space and recreation plan.
Yeah.
So we need some of their goals. So we went in to say, hey, we're going to need some of your goals. Here's some of the results. Sadie, thanks for giving us the results of the survey. Here's some of the results of the survey that relate to recreation questions. I think ended up that you just mentioned one of them, Sean, to them. And so, hey, just gave them the heads up that we're going to need a goal from you guys to include in the plan.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really,
Yeah.
that's why we went and that's what we asked for. So we just got the wheels turning. Like there's more to do there, but we got the wheels turning and they're coming up with their own priorities for their end of year goals as well. So those will feed into what they give us.
Did you sense that there was any relationship between what they're doing and the plan which they submitted and are currently funding in bits and pieces? The one that got submitted to this and accepted by the select board, which was a plan specifically for Manta Fields.
Oh, okay. I think this is beyond all that. This is in anticipation of they're talking about next year and beyond. So these would be, I think goals is probably a better word, but basically, what are their future goals in terms of, recreation, especially in light of what people have said in the survey and in our meetings, et cetera, and what they've gathered also by interactions with people in the town as well. So yeah, so I like the word goals better, but basically their goals are going to end up in our plan. That's the point.
And David, yes, I
until
would
we
say
get
that isn't the recreation committee really just focuses on Mantor Fields? And their plan probably had like a long vision of like Mantor Fields, here's what this is gonna, I know it doesn't, what is it, Central Steep Fields? Like they probably had a long-term vision written into that plan, so I would imagine that, yeah, that any
Well-
long-term visions that haven't been realized yet might get repeated in the open space and recreation plan, if I had to guess.
Yeah, so okay, so I guess what I'm hearing is neither Sean and Christina anyway have actually seen the plan which the select board approved.
Nope, I have not. I saw the cover somewhere and maybe somebody has circulated it, but I have definitely not read it. So if there's long-term vision
no.
in there, I feel like that's probably a good source for them to come up with their plan, what their, goals
Well,
are.
okay, uh, I think, what do I think? What do I think? Okay, I think we need some more exploration here. I'm very personally grateful that you went and alerted them to this. There are some movements afoot to expand the responsibilities of the recreation committee, okay, to a degree. And I, at this point, they're not public discussions, so I can't really share them, but there are. I don't want to sound sort of weird or secretive, but I just don't want to sort of get the cart before the horse. But suffice it to say that two things are true. One is that the town has committed itself to doing two things. One is spending some monies annually to from the annual budget to recreation at Manta Fields, based on how it now works. They've also accepted this plan, which is basically sort of a development plan for the Manta Fields, okay, which pieces of which have been already done. With the tot lot is an example. And there's a lot more in that plan. And why I'm bringing this up is because that the town has committed itself to, and we've got to, in my estimation, we've got to embrace that some way in this plan, because it's in what will be submitted to the state, because it's part of what is the ongoing activities of recreation in the town. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, it seems like it's gonna make it really easy, to be honest. So I think that they'll probably come up with that solution themselves. You know, we sort of planted the seed, we need something to go in the open space and recreation plan, and the moment we go, oh, well, good, we already have a whole list. We already have a document that shows our vision, and we'll just pull something
Right.
from there. So I think that's
Right.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but I'm not into, okay. I think we may encourage them, we may need to encourage them to see the importance of understanding the relationship between what's actually underway, okay, with committed funds, and they will go out to seek more monies to do that because they can, all right? And what they may want to do. And that has going to have to get sorted out as to where their priorities are. And I do not have the impression from what Sean's just said and what you're saying, Christina, that they're there yet in the sense of, and so maybe we do need to have a joint meeting, is my feeling, because I think we need to discover as a group what it is that actually is happening in their world and how that is going to plug into the plan. Okay, so I'm going
Yeah,
to.
Yeah, that was part of our goal, was to also invite them to a joint meeting. And Sean, I think they said that they were open to that, right?
yes, I think, yeah, I don't know what the exact method for establishing this meeting would be. I was kind of hoping Sadie would dig into that. But yeah, they're definitely open to that. I think the other thing is, I think they'd like to see the responses from the survey. As I said, I didn't go through the whole thing. I only had a few minutes to talk to them, actually. I did go over the answer to the last one, which was question 13 here, which is, would you support a small tax increase to make your highly ranked items in the previous question happen? And so they were pretty happy to see that almost 2/3 of the town would agree with that. So they're aware that that some of the questions that were in the survey do apply to what people in the town envision as recreation, as what envision recreation being down the road here, maybe even in the next couple of years or 5 years or 10 years. So there is they are doing some planning in that sense. There are a couple of items that they were talking about at the meeting. For example, hiring a full-time or part-time recreation person. Okay, so, I mean, I don't think that actually, that's something that they can focus on and do. I mean, it doesn't really fit into our plan here, but I could see where that would be something we put in the plan, though. I mean, it's a reasonable thing to plan for, like more employees to work on it, recreation issues, etc. So, anyways.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yes, but I have to step away for a few minutes, and if I could ask somebody to maybe pick up the notes for me, and hopefully I'll be back shortly, but I need to step away for a few minutes. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'll take notes.
Thanks, Christina. Okay, so should we, yeah, basically, should we essentially issue an invitation for them to come to our next meeting, regular meeting?
I had sent them an email kind of just asking like preliminarily, like, would you be interested in a joint meeting since
Yeah,
one of our members joined your last meeting and was talking like you had talked about it at
Yeah.
your last meeting. So I thought maybe I'd just ask them again, maybe about a specific date. Like I think Sean, you suggested like like December 2nd or something.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, timing is an issue there. Yeah.
That's true.
I guess,
Do we know, let's see when the next meeting is? I'm just looking to see, I'm on the website here. But I hate this website, but anyway, okay.
In the meantime, Sadie, by chance, did you send them the results of the survey?
I don't believe I did, but I can.
and I think
Okay.
that, Christina, you created some talking points, and I don't know if they were all touched on, but maybe in the invite or something, if we tell them specifically what we're looking for when we meet, I think that will help guide our talks. So just a couple bullets. I do think that I don't see the urgency so much. If they have to have a plan by the end of the year, well, that's not our plan or even what goes into the plan. We're looking more at like goals. And we have a lot of information from the town survey that we can fall back on or show them, and they can be like, yeah, we agree with these goals. So but I mean, it's gonna be great to incorporate them and get them in this section of the plan. And so a meeting is probably warranted. I just think it would be like, let's kind of like focus down on exactly what's expected from them.
Yes.
Yeah. In particular, I think we need to do is ask them if there are any goals that they themselves have in mind that weren't reflected in the survey or which we may not know about to be incorporated in the plan, that kind of thing. So,
Well, their next meeting is the 3rd, according to this, which is next Monday. So, it's a bit short notice for people, I think, right? That's their meeting, and our meeting is going to be on the 18th, yes?
Yeah. Well, so do we want to set up a separate joint meeting, like specifically to talk about the goals and the plan and stuff? Because I feel like if we just sit in on their meeting, it's gonna kind of just be the same as what Sean and Christina did last time.
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe we want to, or maybe we have them come to our meeting. That might
yeah,
be.
just as an observation, they had a pretty busy agenda. So we were one item on their list. So they had like a 12 item or 13 item agenda. So
Yeah, I think that we should offer up that they come to our meeting. But agree with Bill that let's be really targeted. I think we already had the talking points. I don't know, Sean, if you still have those talking points. I'm looking for them. I can't remember, but we were very explicit as what we were looking for from them in the talking points when we were there. So they knew
Yeah,
that we were just
yeah.
sort of like establishing a relationship so that we could get their input into the plan.
And
Remember, it's
did-
not what they specifically wanted. This is for the whole town. So what does the town want? So they have goals, but it has to, as it pertains to the entire town. What is the town's goals for
True.
recreation?
Christina, were they specific about like, I mean, were you like specific around here's the, here's the actual document and we have this section and then we have the action plan and, stuff like that? Like, are they, I guess when they show up at the meeting, if we can just be very concrete about, we want to fill in these sections, relate to what Bill said about the survey and so on, and, just confirm exactly what the ask is, right? And the ask could be to validate what we think they want and add in some additional stuff, right? Or it could be for them to take from their docs, a summary that needs to be essentially copied and pasted into, section this, section that, and so on in our plan. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to reiterate being concrete and very directed about what we're asking them, knowing how busy they are. I'll stop there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share the document that was the talking points, and Sean really ended up being the one who conveyed the talking points.
okay. I don't-
But just to run through it, we gave them an update. The goal was to give them an update on the open space and recreation plan. Thank you for participating so far. To thank them and to share the results of the recreation specific questions from the public survey. I just found the notes. We want to have continued collaboration. Here's the approximate schedule, the results of your committee specific questions from the survey. We're actively preparing the various sections of the plan. One section will address the town's goals. Would you like to take some time to review the results of the public survey to determine whether there is a specific goal that you would like to include?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we would be interested in having a joint meeting between our groups in late November or early December. I mean, those were the asks.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we could certainly include the information that we've got from the survey. That's fine. And anything that we got in the open meeting. That's all within our bailiwick.
Does the survey really speak to their world? I really don't think it does. I mean, in a broad sense, yes, that they share the same.
Well, that's why we're asking if there's something we're missing. That's fine. They also, I mean, the questions in the survey that address recreation come from them. So I don't want to make this an us versus them thing too much either, but it's just that I think we got our hands full doing what we've already got, in front of us. So I think we're wise to accept whatever help we can get from them. I'm sure there's a lot of things that go on in the recreation committee that none of us are all aware of. So it'd be nice to have them in the plan where essentially that's half of what the plan's all about.
So
Yeah.
Bill actually brought up a really good point a week or two ago that I know it's called the open space and recreation plan, but there's no definition of what recreation is. And so we're
Right.
trying to be inclusive by talking to the recreation department. But that it could be that in some towns, if you're like in Medford, the open space might only be the tennis courts and the basketball courts and the soccer fields that the kids are playing on. And we just don't have that dynamic here. We have actual open spaces that people use to recreate, as opposed to organized fields. So I'm not feeling super inclined to really force the recreation committee to give us a priority that we include in here. And even if they gave us one little thing that we put in there, that's great. But I guess my sense is that open space has a different meaning in the town of Newbury as opposed to Mantor Fields and the
You're-
vision beyond that for organized sports.
Are you saying active versus passive recreation? That sort of was the one of the differences.
Like organized versus not organized. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actively, recreating, I'm hiking,
I
I'm
mean-
walking, I'm, doing those
Right.
things, but it's not like an organized sport where we're all hiking
Right.
up Old Town Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it just feel like our town is a little different.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I also think that half the plan isn't about recreation, and sports fields and stuff. It's a part of open space and the town's use of these spaces, but I think it's a lot bigger. Open space and the natural places and some of our parks, playgrounds, those are also really, really important too. So I think that it's the proportion is a little bit different in this town.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's, I mean, just not to get too much into more on this because we've talked a lot, but like the previous plan from our older open space plan, had pages of things about the youth teams and the sports and the enrollment numbers and this and that. But it seems like it really is a great time to sort of, I don't want to say split, but include what we need to from them, but stick to the spirit of this open space part and passive recreation. Um,
Well,
Yeah.
I,
and we
you-
can say that in the intro, right? We are not trying to address the vision for
no, but I
you.
think,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim, but I think we have, okay, we'll get the handbook thrown at our heads if we go too far in that direction. I think that it's interesting. I think what Bill and Christina were both saying is sort of the whole issue that open space is frankly a bad phrase. I mean, it means everything and nothing in a kind of way. And we started, if you remember, a year ago by most of us, I think, didn't have a commonly held idea of what open space was, to the point that I felt the need to sort of say that's the problem part of it. So not to go down that lane again, but okay. I think what has to happen here is there has to be a clear presentation in the plan that recreation is a part of the town's structure and operation and plans, because all of this is an exercise to get money. In part, if not in whole, okay? And if you don't hit the right kind of what points in doing that, then what will happen is we will end up getting the plan tossed back at us with a rewrite requirement. And I'm not saying it'll necessarily be in this area, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that we expect to the stuff that happened before was in response, frankly, to the original handbook. Because if you remember too, the other thing that happened in the 2010 thing version was a whole ADA section, pages and pages of things about um, ADA stuff. That now has all gone. Okay. And so my suggestion would be, I think, in view of where we are, is maybe what we need to do is to have a meeting between some of the members of each committee and not the whole committee, okay, from both committees. In other words, not to take all dozen of us or whatever it would be, but to ask their committee, and I would frankly suggest the two people who came the last time would probably be in many ways the suitable people, but that would be up to them to meet with two or three of us. And that would establish, I think, more clearly and less threateningly, if there is a threat involved, as to what they have an opportunity here. And I hope they see it that way. They have an opportunity here to establish themselves in a wider role than they currently have. And also to establish themselves on a planning arc that runs for a decade. And I think that's something that should be important to them.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not-
I think that that is what was, you know, the plan that was to convey that at the last meeting with them. So we planted the seed that they have a moment here where they can contribute to this plan. So now we'll
And
follow up and see if they've been thinking about it.
And I think their notion of recreation is in some ways fairly limited. You know, I think they are focused very much on the Central Street Fields there. Although they are also, a fair amount of the meeting was discussing the Pearson Field. But there are other recreational fields in town as well. And just from an open space perspective, I mean, the wildlife preserve, the beach, all the rivers, lakes, those are all recreation opportunities. And those are not things that the Recreation Committee itself is really going to be involved in that much, I don't think. So we do have kind of some of it does fall into our bucket here. I mean, that sort of thing. I mean, for example, recreational hunting. You know, that's an open space issue. That's really not a rec committee issue. They have nothing to do with it for the most part. But they're the ones that know the most about in terms of you know, people in the town do seem to focus on that very structured recreational approach. I mean, when they think recreation, that's really what they're thinking about. To some degree, swimming, off Plum Island, you see that. But
Yeah.
I think that's what they think of when you say, okay, well, what do you want to do for recreation in town? They're going to say, oh, let's hire a couple of people to make sure that all the soccer teams are, scheduled appropriately. It's amazing how much of a conversation they can have about scheduling stuff, but yeah, that's the kind of thing they do. So, yeah. Sorry.
David, I
Christina.
like the idea of just having a couple people, like, see if they want to send some ambassadors, but I would like for them to come to our meeting. I would like all of us to be able to be there and hear what they say and, just have them be an agenda item. They can be the first agenda item on our meeting, and then they can go on their merry way, and we can just see if they've thought about what we introduced to them at the last meeting and, map out a path forward. Could we invite them? Sadie could, you could invite them to the next regularly scheduled meeting that we have. What do you think about that?
I
Yeah,
like
so-
that plan.
I actually kind of, yeah, I guess I kind of would like to have a joint meeting where all we talk about are the issues that intersect our two committees. I think we'll, first of all, we can focus more on information that will go towards this plan. And then secondly, I think we'll get a clear idea of what they're, where the intersections of the two committees are. And I mean, one of the things that has come up in the past is maintenance issues for like trails and parking areas and so on. They actually have a budget to have this stuff taken care of, say for the Central Street Fields and what have you. Whereas we don't have any money at all. So it wouldn't hurt us to have be able to, I guess, get an idea of, what's the appropriate way to approach issues like that. So.
Well,
Yeah.
let me make a suggestion to sort of see if we get the logjam gone. Let's take Christina's suggestion and give it as an open invitation to all and any of members of their committee who can come to our next meeting, because we'd like to discuss their role, and as introduced by the two of you, in this plan, and just see what happens. Because in some ways, I think it's up to them to decide how much of a response they want to make to this.
I agree. I like that.
That sounds reasonable.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, all right,
Let's do
so now, can you, Sadie, make that into an invitation from Bill and myself?
Yes.
Or, yeah, I think, or the whole committee, whatever sort of, we don't want it to sound too pompous, but, that we, and draft something essentially and let us see it before you send it. So, something that would send essentially that to say that, we'd like to talk some more along the whole area that was opened up by Sean and Christina, because I think from what I'm hearing, Sean and Christina found out that this was perhaps news to some of the people on that committee, which isn't their fault necessarily, but I think is understandable. I just looked at, one of their agendas, and their agendas are all very nuts and bolts about, very sort of specific issues. That they're a management entity in many ways, which is not, frankly, the only thing they should be, but it's the only kind of role that they've known to play, I think. Okay, all right. So can we move on?
I'm gonna
Wait.
have to, I see Mike's back. I'm gonna have to leave. I have a relative visiting, so
Okay,
I will catch up on the recording. See you all later. Thank you.
okay, Jim, could you send us any observations you have about action plan goals after
Sure.
reading? Yeah.
Okay.
To send an email out to all of us so we can share that, because
I
that's
will send
what we're
something.
going to talk about next.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, so action plan goals after reading the survey data. What do we think about reading the survey data, and what does it seem to prompt? Can I just do this by going around the group and ask Mike what came to, what you sort of found in the not so much as an action plan specific, but what you took away from the survey?
Yeah, for sure. So two things that kind of jumped out to me from the survey were, protecting and further protecting and improving on existing town-owned lands. Questions 11 and 12 dealt with different aspects of stewarding town land, like marking of hiking trails, support for a guide style list of places or a map, ranked as the highest priority in those questions. Question 12 showed growing support for protecting town-owned places and having public access to them. And attendees of the public meeting showed a desire to improve or continue improving places that the town already owns. So I thought that stood out, kind of protecting and improving existing town-owned lands, and everything that encompasses under that. That was one thing. And then information on existing resources was another thing that stood out to me in reviewing the survey. Question 8 identified a strong need across the board to provide better information on existing places in town. Areas with the highest concerns were understanding location or access points, maps, information on hunting dogs, improve parking. Those were the two goals that I pulled from reviewing both the survey and like notes from the public meeting that we held.
Yeah, great, great. Christina?
Sorry, I'm coming off mute here. I would say that the question that folks are willing to spend some money on their highest ranked items for what they believe courses of action that the town could take regarding open space. And so we know that reflects a commitment from people.
Mhm.
There's in the highest ranked ones, I would say, was put undeveloped town-owned lands into permanent conservation and preservation that would prohibit future development but would allow public access. That was kind of the highest priority of all of the different categories or
Yeah.
options that were up there. So, I mean, my big takeaway from there was we should have a goal to put undeveloped town-owned lands into permanent conservation preservation, and we should investigate the option of how would the town fund such a thing.
Yeah, right. Yep. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's my big takeaway.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, so I kind of took a step back and I looked at a couple things and tried to just not question by question, but just like what are the biggest areas that popped out to me. I thought education outreach was really important, whether it's finding out where there's public access, but also like, I mean, like concerned about hunting and stuff. Like a lot of that is more education rather than you know, action, I guess, or it falls under the education, I think. I thought the point that, I think there's a common theme here between all of us, of course, but I think that they're willing to spend money to put towards open space. That's huge. I feel like that's maybe the newer generation starting to come out and being like, yeah, or maybe the demographics in this town might have changed over the last several years. But what else I did is because I was like actually trying to craft goals. And what I did is I looked at the Hudson's open space plan, and that was really informative to me. I don't know if you've looked at Section 8 in their plan, but they have a lot of goals, I think more than you need. And I swear to God, we could take every single one of these and just make them ours. There's a common theme in open space. It goes from facilitating and implementing this plan to make sure you maintain, the open space committee. There's preserve important unprotected natural areas and open space resources in Newbury. I mean, you can go right down and it's like, this is our goals. And then, but what was also really impressive is if you look at that, the plan, the workbook tells us that we need a table. So you have your plan, your objectives, but then underneath that you have, or sorry, you have your goals, but underneath that you had your objectives. And their objectives were like, they really hammered it out, funding and how they're going to get it done and stuff. So I thought that is
Right.
challenging to us. So that will be our next step, I think. So yeah, I mean, I guess that was my biggest takeaway looking at the data and trying to apply it to our town.
Right. No, that's great. Sean?
Okay. I just had, I guess, two observations. One has already been raised, which is that people do seem to want information about open spaces in particular, marking the hiking trails and all that. That seemed to come out a lot. For some reason, I also, from the open meeting, recall people talking a bit about parking situations and how that kind of is an impediment to taking advantage of some of the space in town. It's interesting that by and large, people get their information from about what's available in town from conservation organizations, but by a long shot. Seems a little strange to me, but it seems like the town could probably do better about making this information more prominent somehow. So something for us to think about in the future. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how much open space we have. Maybe this report will be something towards clarifying that point.
Okay, so that's it. I'm not suggesting there should be more, but anything else? Sean? No, okay.
You
All
mean,
right.
On the topic of the survey?
Sorry.
Did you mean on the topic of this of our plans, or? I'm sorry, you were asking me a question.
Well, I was
I
just
didn't get
wondering
that.
if there was anything else, because a number of the things that you referenced had been referenced before, but okay,
Oh,
so
no, that's it.
I think that we've got a good selection. Hopefully we'll get something from Jim. Okay, all right, so
And David, what jumped out at you? What were your key points?
sorry.
What
And
were your observations from the survey results again? Did we start with you?
Okay, my observations are frankly coincident with, I think, everybody's pretty well. The whole issue of information, the whole issue of clear access, which comes up to the point that Sadie raised right at the beginning, was this inquiry from somebody who actually lives on a condo development on High Road, okay, where there is in fact a conservation area that was part of the permission to actually build that development. And he was wanting to take his two little kids, I think, there, and didn't know whether there were trails or whether there was any information. And apparently there's no, I think, signage, didn't he say, Sadie?
Just want to clarify that Brad actually lives down the street from that development. He doesn't live in the
Oh,
development.
he doesn't live.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but he
Yeah.
lives sort of on top of
Close
it.
by. He could walk to it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So you said this is someone you know?
He's on our board of directors at Greenbelt.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of interesting too. Okay, so that I thought was a sort of pretty good example of where we're in process, but we don't have a formal program or plan in town to do that kind of thing, which leads me to the next takeaway I would have, which is a generalization, and that is the whole area of what I think Mike called earlier stewardship, and I would think of that in the broad sense, and this is how it would relate to recreation, is management. There's no sort of buck stops here kind of structure in our town. The DPW are the people who occasionally fix things, but there's no way of sort of, well, who do you go to? And obviously you end up probably at the planning board. And personally, I think where areas where all of those things come together, namely access, trails, management, and I'll make the connection here, and that is that where this comes all together with the one area which I think does involve us being cognizant of climate change issues, which will provide challenges, and that is Plum Island and access to the beach. Because a single single violent storm here can wipe out all of our current access to the beach in a very significant way. And that always comes down to, oh, gee, what do we do now? And squabbles between
David, did we address that in the survey? We're talking about the survey results, right? And if did the survey results point to that as one of the big issues?
The number of, okay, if you go into the 360 or whatever it is, all the little things, okay? There are a number of people who are talking about dogs on the beach, about access to the beach. There are enough, and it's a good example of, as I see it, it's a focused example of where most of those kinds of things come together. And because we don't have any money, supposedly, of course we actually do, but because we don't have any money, somehow we don't get around to, finding a way to do it unless we can go to the state and ask them for money. And, it gets very knotty. So, okay. And the other thing is, and we've talked about this before, is the one major piece of open space, to go to the thrust of Bill's comments, the one major piece of open space that the town owns is Great Meadow, which is, just really marginally developed it at all as an open space, which, sort of encourages informed walking, strolling, hiking around it, taking kids, nature observation, all of that sort of stuff. And again, that's because, except at the minimal level, there ain't no money always. So those are my takeaways, and they do lead to, frankly, specific recommendations eventually. And I thought they all rather neatly led to a number of things, which are obviously, yes, my bugaboos. Okay, time is marching on, and all right. Do we have any updates from anybody else? I guess not.
I have, well, I have one thing I could mention, actually kind of ties in with what you were alluding to there, David, I think. First of all, I just want to point out that question 6 here, the survey has Plum Island Beach as the most visited location of open space in the town for the respondents. And so I can see, anyways, point is, I attended a conference last night on climate stories run by the state. Was held in Ipswich yesterday. And basically it was a bunch of area people who have various climate related issues. One guy was from Ipswich. He was a shellfish farmer. There was a lady from Ipswich also who was a farmer, Three Sisters Farm she ran. There was a guy from Plum Island talking about the storms that have been hitting Plum Island. Point is, to summarize, it turns out there's a lot of resources available through the state, a lot of different grant organizations that we can start to look at if we want to consider, especially around areas like resilience planning and planning for climate change, especially erosion and the particularly drought situations and coastal storms, etc. So those 3 things the state is working on, and I got a whole list of resources if we ever decide we want to get out and pursue that stuff. That's the summary. It was a good meeting, though. Very
That's a
interesting.
good update. Thanks, Sean.
Great.
Sorry, somebody talking to me or to Sean?
Sean.
No, I'm done talking. We're waiting for anyone else have any updates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, just along those lines, I don't know whether any of you are aware of a group based largely in Newburyport, which is Storm Surge. Yes, you probably Sean are, yeah.
No, I'll write it down.
Well,
I'll add
okay.
it to my list. Storm
They-
surge, Newburyport.
Yeah, they're dealing
Going
with
on my
all
list.
kinds of things which relate to the whole issue of the threat which storms pose to communities on the coast here, and they have uh, a program which runs all year. And one interesting program they had just recently was actually they did have a program on shell fishing and stuff and the ways of it can stabilize marshes and so on. But what I was thinking of is they also had a very interesting program which I couldn't get to on the whole issue that's posed by the fact that essentially property insurance is going to probably collapse in coastal communities, and Plum Island is very much exposed to that. And so what will happen is that um, a major cash cow for the two towns of Newburyport and Newbury will eventually probably just go away. And so that does raise the issue of how sensible is it to commit significant funds and efforts into super recreation kinds of opportunities on Plum Island, which is a discussion that's going to have to be had at some point. Okay. Anything else, or are we at a point where we should discover whether the next meeting date of the 18th, I think, yes, Sadie? Is
Yeah,
it
I have that in my calendar. I think we discussed it last meeting.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
it's
In
down.
person? Does that work for people?
Yeah,
in
is that okay for everybody, the 18th?
That's fine.
Yep.
Yes? Right. Okay, so let's make it the 18th then. All
All
right,
right, 18th at 7 in person in the usual place.
right. Yes, okay. So we'll have it at the Council on Aging meeting room in person. Okay, anything else, or are we ready to adjourn? I have a feeling we are.
David, don't forget to send me your comments on the climate effects section. Curious to look at
Oh,
them.
yeah, okay, all right, yep, all right, yep, I will do that.
Okay.
And so we landed, Sadie, you're
Thanks.
you're gonna send a little note to the recreation department with the survey results. And then an
Yes.
invitation for, an ambassador or somebody, some folks to come to our meeting on the 18th. And we'll have like our first agenda item will be to chat with them about. I mean, they can all come if they want to, but that's where we're gonna sort out what,
Yes.
how involved they're gonna be and, okay.
Yes, that's my plan.
Okay, I will send out the talking points that we had for the last meeting with the rec committee, just so everybody can see it and see if we want to kind of change that agenda at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, probably, I know we can't discuss it necessarily in detail, but I'll at least send out a starting point.
Yeah,
That would be helpful. Thank you.
okay, yeah, that would be useful so that we could all have it before that meeting. So we know what what you hope they heard, as it were, right? Because that's not always what people do here. Okay, so are we ready to adjourn? I think so, yes?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Second, okay.
Okay,
Beat you.
so all those in favor say aye to adjourn? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you,
good night.
everybody.
Have a
Good
great
night.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh,